army or armed forces of the country, people thought, it's not my domain, shied away that, okay, as long as the army does issues, we are not part of the national security. And I will keep linking up recently, that is what has happened in Operation Sindoor also. You are aware that how we are compelled to use force even at the last moment. In the annals of military history, of any country for that matter, to strike against a nuclear power and get this success that what achieved is unparalleled. Why did you go around, started picking up people from Ukraine and other far-flung places, the moment there was a war took place? Because human security is a very important issue.
The UPSC exam doesn't defeat you with difficulty. It defeats you with confusion, lack of clarity, lack of direction, and preparation that feels scattered. At Vision IAS Delhi, we rebuild your UPSC journey with structure, strategy, and support that doesn't waver. Get complete coverage of GSC, SAT, and essays step by step, PT 365 and Mains 365, so current affairs stop feeling like chaos. Personal mentorship, not just advice, but actual strategy guidance. Test feedback loops, because growth begins where guesswork ends. Toppers didn't just prepare, they built the right foundation. Now it's your turn. This isn't just a course, it's where clarity, consistency, and confidence begin.
It's like having a small tutorial today. You all attended tutorials in your colleges? College में tutorial होता है? Small tutorial colleges. I think there is some miscommunication as well. When did you all get the message? In the morning or yesterday? In the morning. Apparently it's very difficult to coordinate then. Some screw up. Right. How many days have you done out here in the course? You've been here for how many months now? Let's start from that side. Completed. Yours? Completed. Beginning. So you all, you must have all appeared prelims. All those guys who completed. Have you appeared prelims this time? Or you are appearing next time? I have appeared. You have appeared. What about you, Bete? So you go to attempt next time? Okay. You just joined. Okay. What's your name? And yours? You're from which place? Okay. We supposed to have this national security series because national security is gaining a lot of importance as far as the nation is concerned, and both from the point of view of the political issues and also from the point of view of examinations. And if you see, GS papers, whether directly or indirectly, you are being asked questions a lot on as far as the national security is concerned. So it has applications starting from your main examinations, from prelim examinations, followed by mains, and apparently a lot of questions are being asked in the interviews as far as the national security is concerned. So it's important that people understand this issue of the national security per se. How many of you have been exposed to this topic before? Those of you who have done 1 year completely. This paper 3. So you've been exposed to this topic before. So, anybody who has heard me before here? You have heard me before. Okay. National security or other classes? The personality interview session. Okay. At the beginning. Okay, right. So did you find that useful? Huh? But you are listening to a different topic now. Okay. Right. No, I think people are more here for personality issues and development. Yesterday or day before I had a class, there were more than 200 people here in the class. Whatever it is. Okay. So this is important. Obviously, people are out here, but I was told that the whole thing is being recorded and is being circulated to people who are not here, and some people are online. Nevertheless, why national security is important is because it encompasses over a period of time a very, very large dimensions of security, moving away from a traditional thought process of national security, of defending our borders, defending our sovereignty, defending our country per se. But then today it encompasses right from technological security to food security to nuclear security to industrial security, cultural security, which I want to tell you as we study. So security is very inherent, and it is also transformed in its own definition and implications and applications over a period of time. So that the national leaders are very, very sensitive to how exactly to define national security, because for quite some time security means it was seen something of the domain of the armed forces, and as long as something was linked to the army or armed forces of the country, people thought it's not my domain, and civil services usually shied away that okay, as long as the army does issues, we are not part of the national security. But the whole thinking has been changed in last for 2-3 decades, wherein these civil services are now today talking primarily on the issues of national security, because when you become administrators, okay, whether in the administration, IAS or in IPS or otherwise, or any other service for that matter, even if you join the revenue services, you will find that there are huge amount of issues which are related to the national security issues. Okay, so it is in this light that I was invited by the study group, and he says that to speak to your national security issues. So since you got a small group, you are most welcome to interfere, okay, or clarify any questions that you have in between. You must take advantage of being in small groups also. Okay, in larger groups you normally don't ask questions, because ये हमेशा रहता कि कोई क्या सोच लेगा, फलाना कर लेगा, मैं खड़ा हो जाऊंगा, ठीक है ना? So people have that particular feeling, right? Okay. Those of you who don't know me otherwise, so basically I spent about then 3.5 decades in the Indian Army. Okay, having passed out from the National Defence Academy and joined the elite strike forces, special forces. Subsequently then I moved into the domain of the Public Service Commission, where I was the chairman of the Public Service Commission, and also expert committee in the UPSC. Okay, so I stand before you with a large amount of experience, also been a diplomat in the Middle East and served in the United Nations also. So hearing is basically a combination of your theory and of course what's in practice. So that you're most welcome to ask any question that you feel like. So national security, I'll be dealing with the following things. Okay, as far as the topic is concerned, be at peace. Okay, you guys are coming from some other class. Acha, or you got the message later. जल्दी मिला आपको हाँ ओके ये होता है when usually in larger institutions where a lot of coordinations takes place, but doesn't matter. The fact is that whoever is here will get benefited. Okay, who is not will not get benefited. So on the issue of national security, the prevailing view, the prevailing view has always been what I just mentioned to you, that it's got something to do with the territorial integrity. Okay, you all can see it. There is not obstruction, I suppose. पढ़ सकते हो नहीं तो you can come this side. See, since if this is obstructing, then you can come this side, because those things. Okay, whoever is just come this side. So the prevailing traditional view is that military defense, protection of the territorial integrity of the country against a military enemy or invasion. This has been the prevailing view as far as the national security is concerned. Okay, and it is by and large the responsibility of the armed forces. By and large the responsibility of the armed forces. Okay, so this has been the prevailing view for many, many centuries per se. Okay, that it is basically the protection of the country, the sovereignty of the country, and as long as the armed forces take care of the protection and sovereignty of the country, okay, we are all happy. Okay, and that has been the prevailing view of national security. अच्छा नहीं ठीक है कोई बात नहीं. Okay, but why are you so morose, all of you? हाँ बेटे, why are you so morose? इतने सोच क्या रहे हो? एक साल तो हो गया ना आपका यहाँ पर, तो why are you so morose? खुश रहो, लाइफ, be smile a bit. क्यों? Okay, or it is too serious a topic? No. Okay, so what I want to say is that be absolutely open mind and interfere anything that you want to ask me. Hence, some questions keep coming onto the mind per se. Are all threats to national security from outside? Is it? Yes or no? Are all threats outside? Okay. Next question, what about the non-military threats? Okay, to national security. We have political instability, we have economic disparities, right? We have regional imbalance, we have linguistic, ethnic and religious issues. So, are they all issues involving national security? Yes or no? These questions. Ask yourself a question. Okay. Then do all means that we should handle national security through force? Are you sure? Because अभी तक आता है तो कुछ होता है national security मतलब आर्मी को भेज दो, एयर फोर्स को भेज दो, ओके, पुलिस को भेज दो, फलाना करो. Is it required that all issues of national security should be handled by force? Yes or no? No, not necessarily. Are you sure? Okay. It depends upon the intensity of the situation. Okay, good. So, from situation to situation, but not necessarily that you always have to use force. Okay. So, and what about the non-military methods of dealing with national security, like diplomacy and economic things? So, there are some non-military issues also. So, we just found out that it is not necessarily only the use of force. Okay, there are also very non-military methods that you have, like we keep hearing like economic sanctions, right? We keep hearing diplomacy. Okay, we keep hearing about negotiations, treaties, and so on. So by which you start resolving disputes per se. So when you handle security issues, we must not think that force is the answer, but force is the last answer as far as things are concerned. After all options have been exhausted, and I will keep linking up recently that is what has happened in Operation Sindoor also. right? You are aware that how we are compelled to use force even at the last moment. So having said this, what are the perspectives as far as the national security is concerned? There are some definitions which I'll take you back a little. This is something which is theoretical, written by Walter Lippmann. It says that security is such that we need to protect our core values. A nation must define its core values. The Indian context, what will be the core value of India? Good. Democracy. What else? Secularism. Yes. What else? Territorial integrity. Yes. Sovereignty. You go back to the preamble per se. Okay. Essentially what is defined in our constitution. Okay. So those few elements of what is defined in our preamble are essentially our value systems. We are not defined ourselves as a religious country like Pakistan or something, okay, or an ideological country, right? We have identified ourselves as a democratic country, enshrining values of secularism, sovereignty, okay. And what are the other features of the preamble? Liberty, equality. So anything which were defined as our core values, is given in writing, isn't it? It's given in writing. So उसमें से कोई choice नहीं है. It is given out in writing, and that preamble becomes our core values. So the moment anything is being threatened to our core values, that means it's a danger to the national security. So this is a thought linking to the and this traditional thought. This Walter Lippmann is a writer almost about, it's an American writer about, let's say about 50 to 100 years back, 50 to 60 years back. So this is what he thought. Subsequently, other people also thought that Robert McNamara, who was the Secretary of Defense again in US, he started linking security to development. He says security is not military hardware, okay, though it may include it. Security is not the military force, though it may involve it. Security is not the traditional military activity, though it may encompass it. Okay, security is development, and without development, there is no security. So in the 60s, this idea started getting coined by the United States, by the Robert McNamara, who was the Secretary of Defense and Secretary of Finance, right? So the concept of integrating development started gaining more and more weightage into the system per se. Prior to that, development and security were two different parts. The most important was security, because if you see the wars that is being fought in the past, पहले क्या होता था, with the kings and जो राजा महाराजा होते थे, if you see our history, it's all लड़ाई है लड़ाई, isn't it? One king went and conquered another another territory, another state, and so on. So the world is full of wars because of various reasons they wanted to have. Okay, and nobody was actually ever bothered about so much about development per se. Whether you take the wars of the Europe, that is First World War, Second World War, see the devastation that took place in the First and Second World War per se. Right? So it is in this light that the concept of security, people started thinking that security is development, and he says without development there is no security. You see the paradigm change which is taking place. He says कि अगर तुम develop रहोगे तो तुम्हारा automatically security बढ़ेगा. With this, the world leaders, including the Chinese president, in fact, this was not even the thought of his predecessor. He emphasized firstly that security is a condition for development. And it is from his ideas that all that you hear of one belt, one road, the BRI initiative, the infrastructure facilities that took place. You see, today Chinese infrastructure is the best in the world. That is not even one of the best, it's the best in the world. their road network, the highway network, the railway networks. Yesterday I was reading somewhere, they're able to get a hyperloop train moving at a speed of 1,000 kilometers per hour, mind you. It is more than the speed of the sound. A hyperloop train, okay, at 1,000 kilometers per hour. Normal train का speed जो होता है, bullet train का कितना होता है? Maximum 400, 500, 600 तक जाएगा. Okay, but they are able to get now 1,000 kilometers. Not even no country in the world has got it so far. Not even the Japanese also. It's because as a security concept, they say कि we must develop. We must develop. And they took sufficient time, almost 3-4 decades, to develop themselves. And now they say कि yes, we feel secure. Then the other issues are coming up. But as a concept, it was the Chinese who propagated the idea that development is essential part of security. We didn't do that. Okay, so, but in the hearts of hearts, in the minds, we always thought that we will protect our core values, as long as our core values, whatever we call it, and we did not put much emphasis on development. Hence, when we today look at the comparative this thing between India and China, on development and infrastructure issue, they are at least 2 decades ahead of us. Right? Okay. So, when you come to our context, you heard of Mr. K. Subramaniam? He is one of the leading thinker. And what is his relationship with the present foreign minister? Good, thank God. Okay. Right. So, he is the present foreign minister, is the son of K. Subramaniam. He is also an IS officer, K. Subramaniam. Okay. He is one of the leading strategic thinkers. Right. He says that national security doesn't mean safeguarding national security, it means we need to industrialize rapidly. And he gave this thought process closely in the heels of Robert McNamara way back in the 80s. But some of the other, we did not put that much amount of thing, but he is the first person in India who brought up this idea that development and national security are very, very closely interlinked. Anything which comes in the way of the development externally is a threat to the India's national security per se. Hence, his aim was industrial-based growth, strengthen economy and security will follow. So we also started following, okay, what the Chinese actually had thought, but his concept, why I say he did not follow the time frame, is that he devised this concept way back in the 80s, but I wish the government of India at that point of time could have followed these particular principles. But somehow or other, it took us another 20 years to actually start this particular thought process that development is very closely interlinked to security. If you are reading the papers, you know, the border area development, road network which is being done by the border road organizations, right? And so on and so forth. They are all being thought about now, but the Chinese have thought about long time back. Their roads are linking directly to the borders. Their villages have been developed, the infrastructure has been developed. So that is the reason all this skirmishes which is taking place, they are able to show us a certain amount of eyes and fingers, the Chinese, is because they are already well placed as far as their development is concerned. They can mobilize their forces fast, they can get their troops at the fastest possible time, and so on and so forth. If at all we had adequate amount of infrastructure built in Ladakh, let me tell you, Galwan won't have happened. When did Galwan happen? 2020? Okay. So when we are thinking of national security per se, development becomes a very, very integral part of it. So we got to be actually sensitive to both internal and external. And in our case, both takes equal priority. So he says, in development, you survive and prosper. In earlier case where there was no development, you are only working for survival. You getting the difference? See, those days our so far emphasis was on the defense. So, despite the fact that we did not do very well in the 62 operations, 62 wall. Okay, so then the awakening took place, and certain amount of money went into defense preparedness per se. Okay, and but we lacked, even in defense preparedness as a part of national security, because Nehru's thought process was that if at all we could have good relationship with all people around, then we don't require much of security. So that's the reason we didn't put adequate emphasis on. I'll come to that part of how, as a part of elements of national security. After we got a debacle in 1962, immediately with the 65 operations took place. Okay. And then the 71, which came in a just span of about 8, after 65, just about after 6 years. But luckily for us, that the military leadership, the preparedness, and whatever equipment profile that had, there's some combination made us, give us one of the biggest military success in the 71 operations. But that military success did not come because of issues that are linked to development. No, development was one side, but when the military action takes place, it is a sum total of a military capability that ensures a victory or success. So that was what played the leadership, okay, the decision, and of course political support at that point of time of Mrs. Gandhi as the Prime Minister. You must have seen that movie on Sam Manekshaw, Sam Bahadur. You heard? How many of you have seen that movie? You've seen? Yes or no? Correct. So if you recollect those conversations that took place with then Prime Minister, so even we are not prepared. And Mrs. Gandhi was asking the army to move in sometime about as early as May, June, which the General Manekshaw, Field Marshal Manekshaw, he refused. He says no. He had the audacity and the guts to refuse to the Prime Minister, saying that if you go in May, June, July, obviously, and with his typical style, Sam Bahadur says, "Ki madam, the only thing that I can assure is defeat." Okay, so that was a different context on which we won, and that was purely a very high caliber military operation which took place. Okay, for which we won, but it was. Obviously, we can't say that if there was development, we will not win wars. It is the other way around. Okay, if we have a good this thing, there will be development taking place. But it's not necessarily that to win wars, we have to have a big military per se. Just the concept has to be seen from this point of angle, that earlier, the whole emphasis for generations, hundreds of years, is that develop military, so that you will be secured and national security. But now the concept suddenly changed in the 60s and 50s and 60s, wherein the people started feeling that no, first develop yourself and automatically then you will be secure. It's not that easy as a concept, let me tell you. Many people will not buy it. When people started talking, he says, तुम रास्ते बनाते रहोगे, घर बनाते रहोगे, तुम्हारे अंदर आके घुस के कोई चला जाएगा, हैं? What do you mean by development? So you see, by normal debate, if the things are concerned, you getting my point? But it was a very serious, very strong paradigm shift in the thought process that how we should look at national security per se. So the concept of integrating development into national security became a buzzword in the 70s and 80s as far as India is concerned. And one of the proponents was K. Subramaniam. Okay. But when you talk a little, go back, what our thought process used to be, in the ancient Indian wisdom, This is straight from Arthashastra, from Chanakya's. Now, he says that a nation faces both types of dangers. It faces internal dangers, it faces external dangers, it faces a combination of that. But even those days, as per the statecraft, they say the most important is the internal. The danger of the security threat which comes from the internal of a country, okay, is more important than external. Now see his forethought. Earlier we were just thinking external aggression, apna border ko bachao. Okay. A thought process which went back thousands of years back. He says what's important is internal dangers should be got rid of first, for it is internal troubles like the fear from a lurking snake that are more serious than an external trouble. That was his concept. Now apply this to the present context. What happened in Kashmir? Pahalgam attack, or prior to that, or Kashmir? It's an internal, external. Internal. What is happening in Chhattisgarh? Internal, militancy. What's happening in Manipur today? Manipur burning. Internal or external? Okay. And if you see all these incidents of Kashmir, whether it is Manipur, or for that matter it is what is happening in Chhattisgarh in that area, Naxalite area, they are all flashpoints. They are internal troubles, but there are flashpoints. Okay, there are flashpoints for creating any amount of external security threats. Link it up with Pahalgam. It is an internal issue. People came in, tourists were killed, other people were killed. It was inside our borders. But did it escalate into almost a war-like situation? Yes or no? Say tomorrow Manipur. Tomorrow if we find, there is more interference as far as external forces are concerned, the Chinese are concerned, obviously it will get into accelerate in a different form. Hence, now if you see the present government, when they look at the security per se, they say that internal issues has to be curbed at the earliest. And that's the reason, as a policy, you had the Article 370 abrogation. That was a part of challenging internal security. And the recent massive operations which is taking place, in the Naxalite areas of Chhattisgarh, Orissa and Jharkhand, wherein a target date has been given that the things has to be eliminated by so and so time. See, how do you define something internal is anything which takes place within Indian border areas, Indian territorial areas, that is defined as a internal. It may be supported, it may be propped up by an external agencies, but it is happening within the territory of India. When you talk of external, that means it also comes to the territory of India, but it's a massive overt force which comes and attacks you. That becomes an external threat. So in this case, the grey area of threat is, let's say Pakistan has imposed a proxy war on us. Now we call it a proxy war, righto. So wherever you find that there is no clear distinction between an internal and external, we now put it as a grey area, grey zone, and the proxy war becomes in the line of the grey zone. In fact, more and more are coming into the grey zone concept. Like take for instance cyber threat. You can keep sitting on the other side of the border and you can jam your, you can destroy the power grid here also. It's an internal area. So in the grey zone concept के अंदर जो है, there is a distinction between internal and external. But to start up with a basic concept as you are studying together, right? What Chanakya mentioned at that point of time, that if you don't curb the internal problem or the internal security issues, which will be like a snake, okay, coming to you, it is going to eat up the country. Yes. So espionage has been there for centuries. They will keep operating. There's not a big this thing. But the fact is today, when you look back of how India has sustained its internal threats, is also amazing. No other country in the world, on getting independence, okay, had to face something called, it was 47 independent, and by 48, okay, we faced a war in Kashmir, though it was external, right? But this was the level. And then soon the problem started in the northeast. In 1958, it erupted in so and so that the army has to be moved in the northeast part of India. So the Armed Forces Special Power Act, okay, was imposed in the northeast part of India in 1958. Just imagine. How much? Just about 10 years, 11 years after independence. What 10 साल, what is 10 years in the growth of a country? मतलब 10 जब 47 पे हुआ था, हमको पता नहीं लगता कि भैया पैर कहाँ रखना है. स्टेट्स बन रहे थे, फलाना बन रहे थे, ठीक है ना, एवरीथिंग इज इन अ chaos, राइट. वहां पर इंटरनल स्टार्ट हो गया. Then in order to access certain amount of states who are not listening to us, we had to launch operations. If you recollect the operation that took place in Hyderabad, to annex Hyderabad, then to Goa in 1962, and so on and so forth. But those are annexation because some states not listening. But the major part, when for an internal thing we have to deploy the armed forces, was so much serious that 10 साल के अंदर our north started burning. And if you had not taken rightful action at that point of time, northeast won't have been with us, frankly speaking. Link it up with the present statement of Muhammad Yunus. They are still thinking that that's such an area which can easily be cut off from the rest of India. And anybody will think, if you are also sitting in the shoes of Pakistanis or Chinese, what is the chicken snake? What is the Siliguri corridor? How much is the weight there? The main corridor, it's about 60 odd kilometers, okay, but that's too small a corridor. So we have vulnerabilities as far as things are concerned, right? So more so after independence, by the nature of the bifurcation which took place, that is a small corridor, the other north is that part of India, East Pakistan coming here, West Pakistan coming there. So internal problems started fomenting quite a lot after independence. So what Chanakya said at that point of time, okay, was so applicable immediately in the aftermath of our independence. When you talk about infrastructure, what infrastructure you are talking of?
So like technology, like we see that today technology is booming and people are using that technology to create a threat. So can we say that this is more
not in the correct sense, this thing, because that technology is available to both the sides. Okay, if they can use, we can also use the technology per se. Okay, there are certain things which are available to both the sides per se. Okay, getting my point. So it's not necessarily on that point of view. This infrastructure we are talking about basically developmental infrastructure per se. Now, the point that I want to driving home initially is that usually thought process is that as long as you are secured, पहले बॉर्डर को सिक्योर कर दो, ठीक है, सब कुछ ठीक ठाक है, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. दिस वॉज द ट्रेडिशनल कॉन्सेप्ट. चाणक्य से बॉर्डर के साथ आप इंटरनल भी देखो. ओके, वो बहुत जरूरी है. अगर इंटरनल अगर आप सही करोगे तो बॉर्डर ऑटोमेटिक खराब हो जाएगा. बट देन in the second half of the last century, people started coming and linking up with the development. आप डेवलप करो, इकोनॉमिक प्रॉस्पर करो, ओके, बंदों को ठीक करो, ह्यूमन डेवलपमेंट करिए, फलाना करिए, ओके, ऑटोमेटिकली आपका सिक्योरिटी और स्ट्रेंथन हो जाएगा. बट नॉट एट द कॉस्ट ऑफ एक्सटर्नल सिक्योरिटी. ये नहीं कि आप डेवलपमेंट करते रहो और मिलिट्री को ना बढ़ाओ. Okay, so both has to go simultaneously. Now when you talk of why development is something what Chanakya said at that point of time. Development is inside the country. The more and more you start developing, okay, then the people who are basically aggrieved or people who feel that right amount of development benefits have not reached out to them, or Naxalism or extremism or for that matter militancy in northeast, otherwise mostly northeast, are matter of deprivation. They feel that the right amount of economic gains have not actually reached them. So more you develop and so on, so all these policies that is now taking place. It's the first time I think the government has taken so much of initiative that to handle the internal issues. Last week I think the Prime Minister announced a grand Northeast development plan. Okay, that and of course the present government is thinking to develop Northeast and link it up to the entire look-east policy as far as the South Asia is concerned. So this is how we'll be able to get the people on the mainstream. I have personally fought insurgency in many parts of the Northeast. So whatever said and done, there is a lot of people who feel aggrieved, that they are not part of the mainstream. And rightfully so, because when I first went to Nagaland way back in the mid-80s, I remember, I visited certain villages where people have not even seen a vehicle. A scooter bhi nahi dekha tha unhone. Forget about a bus or a car or a plane or something of nature. I'm talking mid-80s. And there were many villages where the women are still topless. And there are many villages where, their only livelihood, जाके सुबह जाओ, तीर मारो, hunt, do some hunting and come back. They had no idea and clue of any civilization. ना तो मोबाइल होता था, ना तो टेलीविजन होता था, ना कुछ होता था, टेलीफोन कुछ नहीं है. They're absolutely isolated. Transforms into? Yes. Even I have seen this in many places, interior of Jharkhand, Orissa, and other places where this belt of the so-called Adivasi and Naxalism is there. So it's very important that we start linking up with these particular people. So coming back to our traditional versus modern view, is that the modern view essentially says that relationship between growth, employment generation and security are a very, very close link. Okay. So when you talk of any question which comes on security or modern view of security, is that is very essential to link up with development, employment and other human indexes. So how do you define national security? Can somebody read out?
National security refers to the security of a nation, state, including its citizens, economy and institutions, and is regarded as a duty of the government.
Is regarded as the duty of the government. So you are all aspiring for what? Civil service. Government है private है? Government है ना? हैं? So बच्चे लोग, ये आपका ड्यूटी है. This is your duty, not a fellow who is working for Google or who is working for any other private company. Okay, he must be earning 3 times your salary sitting there, but security भाई आपका है, because duty of the government. So you can't wish away कि ये मेरा काम नहीं है कर कर. क्यों? तुम्हारा काम है नहीं है? जोर से बोलो ना. है. गुड. क्या नाम आपका है? ओके. वैभव, वैभव थोड़ा सेकंड पैराग्राफ पढ़ लो. Not internal, national security. हाँ. Apparent.
well-being of a people and its survival as the nation state at any given time by the balancing all the instruments of the state policy through the governance and extendable to the global security of the variables external to it.
अच्छा थोड़ा लंबा हो गया, but can somebody explain this? What does it mean? What do you understand? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This security
Mm-hmm.
is covering all the dimensions.
Mm-hmm. And what else?
In nutshell, the apparent well-being.
Ah. So here's a new dimension comes. Okay, it's an apparent well-being of the people and its survival. So we are slowly coming into human indexes. कि if the end of the day, जो भी तुम करो security करो, अगर the people who stay there, the human beings who stay there, अगर उनको कुछ भलाई नहीं होगा, उनकी improvement नहीं होगा, उनके भला किस चीज की security? Building की security? What do you mean by nation? Is it just a line which is drawn on the border? कि वहां पर बैठे तुम गोलियां मारते रहो? हैं? So these are all definitions, but at the end of the day, अगर हम पैसे खर्च कर रहे हैं, ठीक है, फौज के ऊपर खर्च कर रहे हैं, डेवलपमेंट के ऊपर खर्च कर रहे हैं, उसके ऊपर खर्च कर रहे हैं, आप गवर्नमेंट सर्विसेज बन रहे हो, किस लिए? फॉर वेलबींग ऑफ द पीपल, फॉर वेलबींग ऑफ द पीपल एंड द सर्वाइवल. क्या फायदा तुम बड़े बड़े इमारतें बना दोगे, ठीक है, लोगों को खाने के लिए पैसे नहीं है. Like it used to happen before. We have no access to history, but let me tell you, even in the Mughal period, okay, most of the money actually went into building lot of buildings and Taj and so and so and so, but a large amount of Indian population were starving. Even including in British time also. Do you know how many people died for starvation and famines in last 100 years before independence? आप गिन सकते हो?
Even in Pakistan, they are spending more money on defense than the well-being of the people.
Well-being of the people. No, we can countless have. We have gone out of that stage, right? But Africa ले लो, फलाना ले लो, वो कर. Many countries are there. They are just not bothered about the well-being of the people. ऊपर बोलेंगे ठीक है. You will find some people in the capitals and all these areas, people well-to-do, so and so. But as you go, all these restrictions take. You heard of the Rwanda massacre? You heard of what's happening in Uganda? What's happening in other places? See, so many countries in Africa. Are there any human index that is being employed? There's nobody is employed about. It's their priority for human welfare and human this thing is pretty low. It was in India also quite some. It is still there. Let me tell you this. But then we are growing. So slowly, this shift is now taking place. Now from physical development, infrastructure, etc., to now getting into human-centric. कि जब तक यार बंदे का welfare नहीं होगा, okay, right? If the human beings are not protected, their welfare is not done, okay, and the survival is not taken care of it, all these things have got no meaning. It is where you come. So the first duty is said ki duty of the government, and second is people. So you have a direct responsibility for security. Yes or no? Yes. When you get selected, obviously. If you are not in the government, you also have a responsibility, but maybe indirect. Okay. ये नहीं कि आप corporate में हो तो आपको कोई responsibility नहीं. We'll come to that also when you talk of technological security. But then, since you are all aspiring to be government servants, okay, and one of the thing is development of human beings and protection of human beings, okay, and welfare of the citizens. This is also a part of security, national security. You understanding? From purely military application of protection of the border, shifting to development infrastructure, and now slowly shifting to human development and human protection and human survival. Okay. Now, when it we come to new dimensions. अब बेटा पढ़ लो उसको. What does it says?
National security conditions that must exist external and internal for protecting, pursuing and promoting national interests, survive and prosper and develop.
So here there is something coming. You had some question?
Sir, you just mentioned that in Nagaland in 1980 that was a development issue that people were so impoverished and there were lots of poverty. But can it still be fitted? Because
Can it be?
but can it still be fitted in northeastern region? Just like Manipur case, there is development, but there is development. The thing has changed, but still that internal security can be linked to development only, or ethnic, or to some other aspect.
See, what happens is whenever there is a disturbance which takes place, it is not only one singular reason for which disturbance takes place, or any development becomes the one of the major focus. But what happens in Northeast, there has been huge amount of external interference to the Chinese, okay, to foment that much amount of problems in India. You see, before they attacked us in 62, way back in 56 onwards, 55, 56 onwards, at one time they were playing with the Panchashil, okay. At the second time, at the other side, they were trying to foment insurgency in the Northeast. So it was a combination of external and of course internal, which takes place. Then there are other issues of, the Myanmar army, which was basically not under control at that point of time. We wanted a separate greater Myanmar. So they also had interest in areas of Nagaland and Manipur, because most of the people who are staying in across the border, okay, in those areas, northeast, they are kith and kins. उनकी जो रिश्तेदार जो है नागालैंड और मणिपुर में है, उनकी रिश्तेदार जो है वहाँ पर बॉर्डर म्यांमार में है, उनकी शादियाँ होती है, उनका आना जाना होता है, okay. In fact, there are buffer zones by which they can go and come. So much is so what happens is then people take advantage of such a thing. So the insurgency or the militancy started in the Northeast as a combination of factors. Firstly, because of lack of development, second, because of external interference, and third, because of some evil designs of the local militant groups, both in Myanmar and other places, to take advantage of the situation. Right? So when any rebellion takes place or any insurgency takes place, economic may be the one of the main reasons, but there are also so many places in India where economically they are very, very poor. वहाँ पर क्यों insurgency नहीं होता है? वहाँ तो in such places में you require certain amount of triggers, and in triggers, like in Kashmir it was Pakistan was the trigger, in Northeast it was the Chinese who were the triggers. नहीं तो there are much more underdeveloped places. If you go to certain places in Orissa, my state, वहाँ पर अभी भी people have not seen what a modern society is all about. I'm talking of not now, at least about 15-20 years back. Easily that things could have been erupted. There are places in Madhya Pradesh, there are places in western part of Chhattisgarh, hugely underdeveloped places. But issue is that they require certain amount of triggers. Okay. Now with this, we come to what the sum total that's the national security is talking of is well-being of the people, fulfill aspirations, right? Promote national aim and realize a national vision. Now we are coming to some new things called a national aim and a national vision. So having met certain conditions which are required as far as security is concerned, कि हमने पहले development, वो क्या फलाना क्या, now coming to the development of the human beings per se, right? Now there's something that we need to ensure that we have a national aim and a national vision. Before I come to the national aim, national vision, you just see the multi-dimensions of the national security. There is not a single thing which is not included in the security issues. Take your mind back, we started with just a territorial integrity, protection of our borders, then we went into development, then into humans, right? Now you see the multi-dimensional national security. We have energy. Can somebody read out? Ambete, apado. Start from energy, here. Go down like this. Education. Communications.
social, science and technology, youth affairs, natural disasters, human resources, territorial, piracy, terrorism,
Economic, and so on. So we started with territorial, okay, and fewer things, right? Now you just see how over a period of time the dimensions of national security, each and everything has got a direct link to the security issues per se. Communications. So today, national security has evolved in such big magnitude that each of them is a subject by itself. When you talk of shipping, it involves shipping lanes, protection so and so, it involves piracy of the seas, the huge security issues. We have been reading so much of, what is happening in the Gulf of Oman and the Gulf of Aden per se. When you talk of education per se, why education is big security issues? Because agar bande unpad hai, obviously they will pick up the weapon systems because they don't know the dimensions of this. So that is why the literacy mission, trying to educate people, make people literate, is such an important thing. Because unless they know what the world is all about, they will pick up a weapon. Anybody can just sway their mind. उसको influence कर सकते हैं. Food. Most of the problem in Africa is because of food. And when the Ukraine war took place, you see the huge amount of food security it implied, because Ukraine was basically the wheat basket of the world. The wheat basket of the world. So entire supply of wheat to the world got affected. The supply chains got affected. And water. What is the latest as far as the water is concerned? Tell us. So, what did the Prime Minister say? Blood and water can't flow together. So de novo, the water has come into play as part of the security. You find the Pakistani ministers, are jumping as Interior Minister, Kal Water Resources Minister, Kal Finance Minister, they are all jumping. How can India do this? How can India do this? Okay. So it's again become a security issues. If you go back to Brahmaputra also, we have expressed our concern so many times to Chinese. आप डैम क्यों बना रहे हो यार? ठीक है? But they are using it as a part of security because at a point of time they can use this water, okay, for flooding the Assam Valley. Which is, we have done a lot of studies on that, and it's quite a dangerous proportion, let me tell you this. At a point of time, if the flood and simultaneously if they break or destroy our bridges on Brahmaputra, okay, and communications through the missile firing, can you imagine a situation? The entire north of Arunachal is just cut off. Just cut off. And in war, you require logistics to follow up. So a combination of flooding and destruction of bridges, okay, can create havoc as far as the national security is in a future war. So everything has got, today we talk of piracy, communications, all digital. You heard of that power breakdown which took place in Mumbai in 2010, in 2014 also? They're all part of your hacking. Yes, China is everywhere. Today communication has become one of the major things as far as security is concerned. So, all I want to say is that please don't think that national security is only territorial, or human resource that you also talked of, or youth affairs you talk of. It's a combination of so many things. तुम कल जब वहाँ पर जाओगे, कलेक्टर बन जाओगे या तो IPS बन जाओगे, जो भी बनोगे, in whatever capacity, sir, mind you, all this has to be kept in mind when you talk of the security, because I gave you showed you the first slide. The responsibility of the security lies with the government, and you are going to government offices. So don't ever think that you're going to have a ball of a time when you get selected. Okay. पहले ज़माने पे collector used to have a ball of a time, but not you. So this is the importance of this thing. So security means developing into a modern society. Okay, security means developing into a modern society, and which is comprehensive and complex. Right? So what could be the national security strategy all about? So far, we're the only few countries who have not actually laid down things in writing. Okay, because for reasons, whatever said and done. But going by the doctrines and going by the various priorities that has been issued by the government from time to time, a broad strategy, okay, involves outlining major security concerns, lays down a vision to attain national objectives per se. It projects a comprehensive national power. You see, comprehensive national power, again a term started by the Chinese, wherein they say that agar we have to dominate the world, then our entire comprehensive national power has to be taken into account. So they started building up that security is very highly linked to becoming a number one comprehensive national power. Are you understanding comprehensive? It's a subject by itself. Just for at your level, just pick up the threads. Comprehensive national power is a huge subject by itself. Okay, and there are a lot of algorithms and other calculations and this thing to work out the national power of a nation, right? But there is something called a comprehensive national power. If you Google or if you do your AI, you get a huge amount of information on what a comprehensive national power is. Okay, and such a strategy must guide military and foreign policy. When you talk of national security strategy, you may get a question that for India, what is a plausible national security strategy, or what as per you should be the various elements or contents of a national security strategy. If they ask you a question, what are the various elements of a national security or the parts of national security, वो गोला वाला जो है उसमें से आप लिख सकते हो 8, 10 पॉइंट 6 पॉइंट जितना याद आता है. Okay, but if a question comes that give out the components of a national security strategy, strategy क्या हो सकता है, strategy बनाने से पहले क्या क्या component हो सकता है. Okay, where if there is a word called strategy or national security strategy, you can pick up these points which I told you. Okay, military strategy drawn from the national security strategy. You know, military strategy is actually done in isolation. Latest example is we have said that any act of terror is going to be act of war. It's a strategy. Now, the very fact that the nation has said that any act of war is going to terror is going to act of war, so that means the military now has to get prepared. Okay, we can't say that we are not prepared. And preparation for war is a very, very complex mechanism. It's not only, बंदे को वहाँ पर border में खड़ा कर दो कि मैं लड़ाई के लिए तैयार हूँ और जय जय हिंद और चढ़ जाओ करके, ऐसा नहीं होता है, ठीक है. इफ यू रेड द 2 days पेपर, लास्ट 2-3 days पेपर यू मस्ट हैव रेड, ओके, द government has sanctioned so many purchases, okay, as far the defense is concerned. Every day there is a of acquisitions or purchase and so on. So I think what I've been reading ever since Op Sindoor is that more than 1 lakh crore has already been sanctioned by the government for purchase and acquisition and so on and so forth, which are required to be done, including some on the spot purchase of 2 squadrons of Su-35. From Russia. You must have heard the AMCA, okay, a policy that is combat aircraft policy the government has started, the strategic policy, both in terms of policies, both in terms of purchases, the government has gone into overgear because it has made a statement as a policy that any act of terror is going to be an act of war. It's a huge statement, mind you. It's a huge statement. इसका मतलब है कि next time Pakistan does this, that we will act it as a war. फिर हम क्या कर सकते हैं war में? एक तो उनको सिखा दिया हमने, एक we given them a hint of what a war could be. But when you talk of Pakistan, it's a potent military power. Let me tell you this. It may be a weak economic power, but it is a potent military power. And with Chinese support, and Chinese support in both the military and otherwise, okay, it is a threat to us. It's not something that we can walk over, no. It is with huge grand designs and deep study and application of algorithms and technological prowess and support from the Israelis, etc., that we could actually overcome the air defense coverage and then go and strike them. It was not easy. In fact, we lost few aircrafts at the initial stage of Op Sindoor because their air defense was so potent at the front, at the top level, that we couldn't penetrate. So we had to resort to another tactic. And mind you, it is in the annals of military history, okay, of any country for that matter, to strike against a nuclear power and get this success that what achieved is unparalleled. Nowhere it has happened so far since Second World War that a nuclear country has attacked another nuclear country and the other country giving out the threat of a nuclear threat कि अगर आप करोगे तो मैं nuclear bomb डालूंगा कर कर. Yet we took a decision. This is a huge political decision, let me tell you this. And let's not, the very fact that Op Sindoor is still not over, okay, is to tell the country that we all have to be prepared. Because किसी को अगर जख्मी हुआ है ना, वो तो बैठेगा नहीं ना कभी. 71 war के बाद what happened was, yes, we got a very big military victory, but then they decided that we will teach India a lesson. And the famous saying that we will bleed them for 1,000 years is essentially the starting of a subconventional war, okay, that took place in the subcontinent. Otherwise, before 88, although there was a gap, lull before 71, because it took time for them to get back into till such time Zia-ul-Haq didn't come into picture. But 88 mein, when the first bullet got fired, I was there in Kashmir those days. In fact, I was there on the day it started. Pakistan decided that we will now start the proxy war. It took government of India to realize that Pakistan is launching a proxy war. For next 20 years, they didn't even think of accepting the fact. The army kept on telling it's a full-fledged this thing, but no, it's just an insurgency. In the process, you know, so many soldiers got killed, so many things happened, and so on and so forth. So, what I say is that military strategy is drawn from the national security strategy. This is a clear-cut example that if the government has said that any act of terror is going to be an act of war, इसका मतलब है the nation is to be prepared for it. Some more points. It also assists in formulation of an appropriate response strategy. As I just mentioned to you, if at all we said that we're going to act a war, it's nothing but a response strategy. If at all tomorrow we have to utilize a different combination, let's take it tomorrow that instead of today only the air and the missiles went in, let's say tomorrow we want to use the Navy. The Navy was also prepared. We want to go for a ground attack. And so on, so response strategies are there. Or one response was, we didn't utilize Indus water as a weapon, Indus water for many, many years. So the first time we said, no, we have to take action against Pakistan. So we took a bold decision of keeping the Indus water treaty in abeyance. Again, it's a part of the overall strategy. Though it was not laid down in our context, but then it was there in the framework of our response doctrines, that in case it happens, then we will do this, in case we will so and so do this. We have something called escalatory level of response. Provides platform for synchronized approach by various ministry and agencies. Again, link up to the Sindur. The moment you said that anything action will be taken as an act of war, that means all other ministries will now having geared up for this. Ministry of Home, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of so and so, then it's a synchronized action. The moment a security strategy is laid down, okay, everybody comes into action.
CSAT is qualifying but absolutely crucial. No matter how well you perform in GS, if you don't clear CSAT, your prelims ends there. Every year, many capable aspirants fall short simply because they underestimated this paper. What's the way forward? Structured preparation, consistent practice, and the right guidance. Join the Vision IAS CSAT Classroom Program 2026 starting from 12th June at 11 a.m. What you'll get: complete coverage of quantitative aptitude, logical reasoning and comprehension. Emphasis on speed, accuracy and concept clarity. Regular practice with UPSC level questions. Personalized guidance and mentorship. Available in both offline, classroom and live online modes. Whether you're a first-time aspirant or reappearing, don't let CSAT be the reason you fall short. Struggling to find the right guidance amid UPSC's vast syllabus? Lakshya Integrated Mentoring Program 2026 is your complete solution offering. Personalized one-on-one mentorship, complete syllabus coverage including GS, CSAT, essay, ethics and current affairs, plus expert interview guidance with mock interviews. Stay ahead with performance analytics for targeted improvement and daily current affairs updates to keep you motivated and informed. Our phase-wise plan ensures steady progress. Integrated revision and practice phase. 2,600 plus MCQs, 25,000 plus Sandhan questions, and 500 plus subjective questions for a strong foundation. Mains exclusive phase. 120 plus subjective questions including ethics and 10 plus essay topics for mains clarity. Prelims intensive phase. 2000 plus MCQs daily weekly, plus 25,000 plus Sandhan questions for prelims mastery. Mains intensive phase. 200 plus subjective questions to perfect your mains answers. Total daily questions, prelims MCQs, 30,000 plus. Mains questions, 800 plus. Test papers. Weekly Lakshya practice tests, prelims and mains, 80 plus. Full-length tests, 25 plus. All phases prelims, mains, and interview preparation start from 3rd June. Enroll now in Lakshya Integrated Mentoring Program 2026 and prepare smart for your UPSC success.
Why do you think as a collector, you are given an overall responsibility of most of these dimensions of things? Even though you are not directly responsible, you are responsible for education, you are responsible for the development, you are responsible for the law and order, you are responsible for the, any crisis that takes place. Because as representative of the government, okay, somebody has to implement the government policies as far as the security strategy is concerned. In that context, as per the line of executive functioning, through the chief secretary and down the line, okay, that is why you will executive powers to implement issues which are of national strategic and security nature. Economic part of it, yeah.
Rajasthan Pharma, lot of kamikaze drones were in Pharma. So that time collectors were also responsible.
Yes, because the internal security, after all, as a district collector, as a this thing, you are responsible for the safety of the human beings. Tomorrow, there is a drone attack which comes up, and then you find it kills 100 of your people in your district, or it destroys a major communication infrastructure, or a dam tod diya, falana tod diya, floods ho gaye. So aren't you responsible as a collector? So this is where all these things come to play. So security is no longer just a simple issue, it's a very well integrated issue. Okay, it enables timely political intervention to external military challenges and diplomatic challenges. The moment you lay down a strategy, then everybody is aware कि हमको कैसे काम करना है. Military starts getting to action, the diplomacy starts getting to action, the economic thing starts getting to action, and so on and so forth, action. So if you get a question as to what constitutes or what are the components of a national security strategy, which is quite a common question, you could include all these points out here. Anything that you want to ask on strategy? Okay, so we'll go to the next one. Objectives. एक बार strategy हो गया, फिर उसको हम क्या, what do you want to basically achieve? Yeah. You want to something? Achieve. Objectives. It's something like, all of you done management, जो पढ़ा है तुम लोगों ने. There is something called MBO, management by objectives, right? और ये objective करो. फलाना. Objective is a word which you come down to now specifics. You want to achieve that. So capacity building for a credible deterrence. Objective is you have to have so much of capacity building अपने को कि हवा में तो बोलने से नहीं होगा. For a credible deterrence. You understand the word credible deterrence? मैं इतना अपने आप को ताकतवर बना दूंगा कि वह दूसरा आदमी सोचने 2 बार सोचेगा कि भैया मैं इसको हमला करूं या ना करूं. और कैपेसिटी नहीं होगा तो क्या करोगे? तुम हवा में चिलते करते रहोगे. Capacity building for a credible deterrence. Then protect and safeguard the national sovereignty, values, territorial integrity. Now the new dimensions of HR, space, cyber and maritime domains. Now this has come to specific objectives. I must protect my HR, I must protect my space. You say human resources, when I say HR, it's human resources, human beings. Space भी करूँगा, cyber भी करूँगा और maritime domains में करूँगा. मतलब space भी है, समुद्र भी है, ठीक है, ह्यूमन रिसोर्सेज भी है, इवन साइबर डोमेन भी है. So I must apply my resources to protecting all this. Are you able to get me so far? Yes or no? If you don't get it, please stop me, because advantage of a small class is this. Okay. Then maintain peaceful and cohesive internal security environment. Maintain peaceful and cohesive internal security environment.
We can see that for the space missions,
Hmm.
recently the second astronaut from India he's going to space. So sir, for the space mission we are choosing persons from the Air Force and so. So sir, can we view it as a kind of security in the space domain? It's a gradual step towards this. Can we view it like that?
No, that's a different. You see, space mission, though we are sending a Air Force guy, but the requirement of astronauts, anybody going to the space, is that there has to be a pilot. He would have piloted a particular thing. And number two is that he should have good knowledge of the air issues and handling of the, the spacecraft per se. So it is in this light that he was selected, because the Air Force people are more attuned to this particular thing. The other space that we are talking of, space domain, is that, there is a new thing called a space warfare. How do you fight in space? So therein comes up satellites, because space mein kya hota hai? Satellites hota hai, right? So satellites now control everything in this, on this planet. Your communications, your weather, your navigations, your everything, so and so, etc. So if you can destroy the other countries' satellites, that means you blank them out as the communications are concerned. Okay, so we also have our space assets with us. We have lot of satellites in us. Supposing tomorrow the Chinese strike out half our satellites, all our communication will go back. You will not be able to communicate in your mobiles. Your 5G, 3G, वगैरह वगैरह सब निकल जाएगा हाथ से. Today you are having a 5G communication because of what? Because of a satellite. We place our satellites on the top, ऊपर जाता है फिर आता है. You can't get a communication on a 5G, okay, through ground means. It has to go through a satellite. तुम्हारा satellite उड़ा दिया आपका communication गया. So these are the, so there is a new warfare called space warfare, where we have anti-satellite now weapon systems which are coming. Now to protect satellites, there is a big domain which is there. Okay, so the objectives are such that from the strategy we have now gone to the objective. So when you say firstly you have a credible deterrence, capacity itna karo to have a credible deterrence, is it? Second, you have to take care of national sovereignty, that is the protection of the borders, protect our core values, okay, protect our territorial integrity, and obviously move into the domains of HR, space, cyber and maritime domains. Okay. Then ensure human security, achieve safe neighborhood, maintain rightful place in the international global affairs. Here comes a little larger aspect. एक बार थोड़ा हमारा ताकत आ गया, ठीक है ना. अभी हम सोच रहे हैं यार यूएन की परमानेंट मेंबर होनी चाहिए, फिर फलाना होनी चाहिए, ठीक है ना. जयशंकर is moving and this thing, talking to many countries. Prime Minister is being invited for G7, even though we are not a part of G7. Right? Having G20 out here, we want to take a leadership of the global south. G20 का हमने इतना अच्छा करा है, सब कुछ किया. You getting my point? So this also enhances your security in the systems. So that is the thing, that maintain rightful place in the international global affairs. Understood objectives? Okay. Approaches to national security, I will skip this, not very much relevant. Come to hierarchical model for national security. When you talk of hierarchical model, you see the core is human. पढ़ लो उसको ring. Human, societal, political economic security, military, internal and international. ये सारे खाका बना हुआ है. Now let's take one by one, what does this all mean? When you say human security, What does it mean? Somebody read out. जोर से पढ़ो. Basic needs, health, food, education, freedom from fear and freedom from want. Okay. Freedom from want भी एक security issue है. Who can explain what do you mean by freedom from want? Ah, very right. Okay. तुम्हारा जितना जरूरत है उतना करो, but the point is the moment you go beyond that, right? Freedom from want, then you become corrupt, right? So you have to protect that. What is societal security? Yeah, likha hua hai. What is societal? We need to have societal security. That is, we need to protect ourselves against casteism, communalism, communal rights, no bias among religions, etc. Okay, we need to have a very, very societal security on these issues. Can you say the caste census is an effort towards maintaining a societal security? If I ask you a question, you heard about the recently announced caste census? Okay, so is it going to help us in societal security or not? राहुल गांधी तो बोलता है कि इट्स ए थ्रेट. Yeah, if it is not utilized properly, you have a point. If it is not utilized properly, but in a multilingual, multi-dimensional society like ours, it is a very important to have societal security, and that is what. After all, one of the aims of पहलगाम क्या था? जब उन्होंने बुलाकर हिंदू वालों को बोला कि तो हिंदू है, मुस्लिम है और उसको मारा है. What was the aim? The aim was basically to divide the society, have communal rights. Yesterday, the Prime Minister spoke. You heard Prime Minister speaking from Kashmir yesterday. He says one of the aim was to create communal rights in the country. So it is our duty to ensure that you don't fall into the trap of our enemies. So communal and societal security is a very important part of social security. Politico-economic security. Because unless you move into the economic front, that is why all the focus, we are now, the world is started noticing you as and when we are moving in the economic front. हम जो बोल रहे ठीक है पाकिस्तान ने तो कर दिया हमला, जो भी कर दिया उसके पास मिलिट्री है, बट उसके देखो यार इकोनॉमिक हालत देखो, उसका भीख मांग रहा है. हाउ मच इज द फॉरेक्स रिजर्व्स नाउ पाकिस्तान्स? 15 मिलियन नहीं, उससे भी कम है. इज अराउंड 8 बिलियन, 7 to 8 बिलियन है. ओके और उसकी लोन कंपोनेंट इतना है कि वो लोन लेकर जो है अपना वो देश को चलाना चाहता है. तो व्हाट सिक्योरिटी दे आर टॉकिंग ऑफ? हाउ मच इज आर फॉरेक्स रिजर्व्स? Yes, it's almost touching 700 plus. Okay, and you're going to soon going to be the top third economy of the world. Okay, this is again a very important. Military security to protect the society from invasion. One of the primary tasks of military security. And this invasion today is no longer only physically come from military. Today terrorists are coming, your questions. Okay, militants are coming. They are all coming from to inside the territory. Okay, there will be cyber attacks. There will be so many types of attacks. So military security. Internal security, we just discussed about it, hierarchical form and so and so. Okay, and international security. Cooperation with other nations for furthering mutual interests. All that alliances that you are having, Quad ho gaya. You heard of Quad, na? AUKUS, BRICS ho gaya. Started with non-alignment movement and so on, so वगैरह. Wherever or ASEAN movement or so many groupings which are taking place, BRICS ho gaya. What is this? They are essentially looking into the security issues. It may not be military security, but it may be economic security, it may be political security also. जैसे कि Chinese are saying Quad is a military alliance. हम बोलते नहीं यार, it's not a military alliance. Okay, it's just a political alliance. But हमें मालूम है it's a security alliance. हमने उसको लिख के तो दिया नहीं हमने. But NATO is a military alliance. Okay, isn't it? We haven't gotten into any military alliance per se. We've gotten into economic and political alliances. So that is essential that why do you do this? Is because of our security. Why did Russia come to our help in 71 operations? Is because we had developed a Indo-Soviet treaty with them. Why do we go to the United States now, okay, and the Prime Minister gets a complete welcome to the United States? It's because we have signed a series of treaties which are basically graded, like something called it starts with a strategic partner, then it's a comprehensive strategic partner, and so on and so forth. It gets upgraded. The moment you are a comprehensive strategic partner with another country, then the diplomatic channels you get access to the other country. अगर तुम access नहीं मिलेगा तुमको दूसरे country में जाने के लिए, okay, you cannot influence those people. And political leaders or military leaders or diplomatic leaders must have the access. That's how you do the security. I used to be India's defense advisor in the Middle East. You know, in Middle East it's so difficult to get access to the people in power because unka hierarchical structure is not like us. So you have to find whether if it was Iran, then it was the Revolutionary Guards. If it was Saudi Arabia, then it was the kingdom people. If it was Qatar, then somebody else. Every country had a different pressure point whom to actually approach. So it's not that easy, even if you are posted in an embassy or something, that you can easily have an access. No, it doesn't happen like this. So developing international relations, developing diplomatic relations, developing alliances is a very great thing of national security. Because unless you have a foothold in that country, country क्यों सुनेगा तुमको? They will not listen to you. I remember some 4 business people from India, वो रातों रात उन्होंने क्या है, they were arrested by the Iranians and kept behind bars. And they have 2 types of system there. One is called a revolutionary guard and second is a normal court उनका है, revolutionary court and normal court. Now revolutionary court का you can't have an access. It's such a closed system. हमारे जैसे थोड़ी कि जाके वहाँ पर चले गए कोर्ट में चले गए उसने तुमको कोर्ट ने ऑर्डर दे दिया. We are such a wonderful beautiful country. You'll be surprised the moment you go to these countries. And these 4 business people, one of them why I got involved into that is one of them was an ex-naval guy. And उनका यही था कि उनका कुछ पेमेंट का इशू था, बट सुनने के लिए तैयार नहीं है. There's something called a consular access. No, हम मांगे जा रहे हैं कंसुलर एक्सेस दे नहीं रहे. बोलता है यार ऐसा कौन से कर दिया उन्होंने कि that you can't even give bloody consular access to us. तो फिर through internal means we told the raw and other people IB को हाँ पर बोला या हम उधर एक बड़ी 2-3 इरानियन को पकड़ के रखो अंदर घुसा दो करके. This what happens. यहाँ पर उनको अंदर किया हमने. They tried bail, sale वगैरह कुछ नहीं हुआ, फिर जाके हमको consular access दिया. And when I went and met them in the jail, उनको पीट पर हवा निकाल दिया था उनका पूरा. And nothing but some bills were not cleared, and that's all. So if not, they would have been slogging in the jail still now also. कौन निकालेगा उसको? There are so many Indians who are slogging in Saudi Arabia jails, despite the fact that we have a good relations with them. Because कोई पकड़ा गया किसी छोटी चीज के लिए, drug is a very important issue. Now you keep having access to them. वो सुनेगा नहीं. But now when you start developing relationship, you remember how those naval guys got released from Qatar? It's because we had a good and the Prime Minister has to intervene in that. So when you talk of human security, after all, people are people, security, wherever they are in the world, diaspora ho gaya. Why did you go around, started picking up people from Ukraine and other far-flung places, the moment there was a war took place? Because human security is a very important issue. So this cannot happen unless you have a good international relationship. We could do this, like we are the only country who could evacuate most of the Indians from Ukraine before the main strike took place, because we had a good relationship with Russia. We told them that when our convoy of Indians are going, please don't fire. नहीं तो रशिया क्यों हमें सुनता है यार? 8-10 buses जा रहे हैं Indians को लेकर. The ambassador is a dear friend of mine. I had spoken to him. मतलब how did he says, no, we have to approach the Russian in no uncertain terms. They say कि no, we are aiming something else, somewhere else. But मानो 8-10 बसें हम इंडियंस को लेकर जा रहे हैं, उसमें से एक स्ट्रे मिसाइल भी आकर लग गया और 50-100 बंदे मर गए हमारे, गया ना काम से. See the amount of human cry that takes place here. After all, human lives at the end of the day. So all these things cannot be done unless you have a good relationship. So when you talk of elements of national security, okay, this is for your quick information, that the Chinese have a large amount of elements of national security, like we also have. Okay, but one of the most important is, I want to highlight, is the cultural security. Now they defined quite a lot of a cultural security. One is a cultural security, comes the language. Okay, language is a fundamental and durable component of the civilization. They take a lot of pride in the language. That's why all the official things are in Chinese language, and one of the major reasons we find too difficult to crack things are because of the Chinese language. Though customs, they have taken a lot of pride. They take it as a part of the security. They say that if our people are having their own culture, having their own language, then it's a part of the security culture. Then attitude taken by citizens towards traditional modern values, security and socialization, Chinese value. They love modernization, but at the same time the Chinese also want to preserve their own culture. I'm just flashing those slides where we are divergent. You see, just think of Indian thing. Right? Today if you want to say, okay, we need to have Hindi, you need to have some other language, or regional language, there is huge amount of resistance. When the new national education policy came and we said that most of our education now going to vernacular language, regional languages per se, the huge amount of demonstration which took place. But the question is that yes, those countries, though they have advanced in terms of their language, but at the same time they have also prospered with English language and other international languages so that they could interact well. So they have gone parallelly. But idea of flashing this particular slide of cultural security is that security of Chinese is a way of life, wherein they starts from their pattern of life, their clothes, their food, their everything. For them, cultural security becomes a very prime importance to give them a lot of jobs. Just for example, because there is no time, I can't discuss other parts of security, but just to highlight that why the Chinese, consider their cultural security one of the prime, because they think one of the fundamental things which enhances their overall security. Because you instill pride in human beings, that I am a Chinese. I recollect with one of the diplomatic gatherings when I was in the Middle East, my Chinese counterpart told me, which I felt bad, but then he was right. He says, no, whatever said and done, you see, Chinese have never been colonized, Nobody has come and colonized, attacked China and ruled us. It suddenly struck to me, yes, he's right. India has been colonized and ruled for last 1,000 years, not the Chinese. Chinese is not the people who have not tried on China. People have also tried on China, except for the Japanese who came and attacked them in the Russo-Chinese war. That is way back. But then they came and held on to Manchuria. They didn't go to the whole of China per se. But the whole of China, I realized, once he said so, has not been colonized like us. And that was a matter of pride for them. Some talk, erupted, though we become friends, as diplomats. Okay, उन्हें पता नहीं हमने क्या खिला दिया था, he gave me a soup, उसके अंदर बड़ी वो सारे वो घूम रहे थे, क्या बोलते हैं, बड़ी live worms, do you know this? Live worms हैं. तो luckily मेरे बगल में my Pakistani counterpart वो बैठा था, तो he nudged me, बोलता यार पैट ऐसा करना तू चलो खा मत उसको, outside you are little friends with all these guys and all. बोले क्या हो गया, अंदर तो देख तो, see inside. वो साले उसके अंदर worms घूम रहे हैं पूरे, हम तो चढ़ गए उसके ऊपर बड़ी चाइनीज के ऊपर. बोले यू डोंट अंडरस्टैंड कल्चरल सेंसिटिविटीज, हमें ये खिला रहे हो, द बड़ी लाइव वॉर्म्स. सम टॉक वेंट इन लाइक दिस, ए लिटिल अब चला गया, तो वहाँ पर बात आया कि oh it's okay, but whatever said and done, we never been colonized, and we realized. So their feeling of greatness or feeling of national unity, country per se. So when you look at how there's a lot of studies which has been done, how the Chinese growth has taken place. Can you imagine, we're the same country, same economy, same state, everything in 70s. 47, when you got independence, China was more poor than us. Poorer than us. Can you imagine? In 70s, their economy was lower than us. 80s they came up, but they started their things in 80s. They were just 10 years ahead of us. But today, their economy is almost 4 times more than us, or 5 times more than us. How? How is it the country of similar structure, similar Asian origin, similar civilization? Okay, uski country jo hai, no doubt 10 years they have a little advance when they started. We started reforms in 90s, they started in 80s. But itne kam saal ke andar jo hai, uski economy is already $16 trillion today, and they're dominating in the field of technology and science. Hum piche reh gaye. We are trying to catch up. But the fact is, yes, we have to accept the fact. Not only India has to be concerned, today the Americans और उसके बीच में लड़ाई क्यों चल रहा है? It's because the Chinese has become a very, very dominant power. Why? What is the reasons? One of the things is this cultural issues, cultural security. So it's important that when you grow up in life, whether you join the services, otherwise so and so, the maintaining cultural sanctity and cultural issues, which is now I find which is coming partly with the government in terms of Sanatan Dharma, in terms of so and so. Nowadays you find a lot of WhatsApp, flooding with Sanatan Dharma and all these things. But this is only a very late realization. It should come as a structured teaching, that we should feel proud of our education system, of our culture, which is there in China, Japan, Korea, all these countries who have risen very fast, is because of the strong cultural security they ingrained into the people. Okay. As far as US is concerned, they have post 9/11, they exercised something on homeland security. They said we need to protect our land. Most of the things are common, I'm not expecting. But when you say what is so essential about the United States is concerned, is that they have invested heavily in their homeland security, what you call internal security. Touchwood, after 9/11, they have not had a case in the United States. No terrorist attack has taken place in the United States post 9/11. What's happening nowadays are basically internal. That is against immigration. But no terrorist attack has taken place post 9/11. They ensured this. So that became a gravitational point of the security doctrine, कि हम अपने अंदर के जो we will strengthen all our rules and regulations, so and so. That is why the immigration law, the security laws, the airlines laws, privacy laws, everything underwent a dramatic change. And they homed on to the homeland security. And post COVID, you see, global health security is something which they got, because they didn't realize that they will lose so many people in the COVID. So, and proliferation security, the one which is in red, proliferation, homeland and global health, okay, is something which is not different. They are concerned of that. When you say proliferation, both in terms of nuclear, also chemical and biological weapon systems. Something different, but having said this, we have discussed the Indian view. Before I get on to the geostrategic environment group and options for India, do you have anything as far as national security is concerned? Or was it time otherwise? Do you have time? Okay. Have you any point on national security? Okay, I will quickly go. The key determinants of geostrategic environment. This, having understood the issue of national security. Okay, I will kill this point before you get into geostrategic environment. Anything that you want to ask on national security? I have given you just the surface. Having seen those dimensions, now you realize how much depth national security is all about. Your climate change is also big security issues. Your hazards, natural hazards, national disasters, your disasters and national issues. So many things when you encompass, they're all linked up to national security. अब बच्चों ये तुम लोगों का काम है as government and future government officers. कॉर्पोरेट का नहीं है, एकेडमिशियंस का नहीं है. क्यों? बात सही नहीं है. Okay. I'll come to the recent ones now. Okay. When you talk of geostrategic environment, key determinants is all little theory. Geography, resources, demographic, technology, political systems. You know, you must understand, what is the geostrategic environment today? Today, there is a resurgence of great power rivalries. Why I have included this is that we have to have our national security navigate through these areas. Okay. Now multi-domain, military, trade, it's reshaping the world order and affecting every region and institutions. And what is the great power rivalry? किसके बीच में हो रहा है? US and China, obviously. China's, we discussed, the China security has become so much that it is now reshaping the world order. चाहे ट्रम्प की टैरिफ ट्रेड हो, कोई फलाना हो, anything that you talk of is actually a part of the great power rivalry between US and China. The second is continental versus maritime strategic doctrines. Maritime is a new countervailing force to continental threats. That is to say that it's no longer dependent upon continental threats, that is through land. Maritime is going to become a big thing in times to come. We had discussed maritime security, okay, during the part of it. Now in times to come, our geostrategic situation is such that maritime is going to play a very major role. Okay, third is emergence of technical Cold War, tech Cold War. Semiconductor supremacy, cyber AI, data sovereignty, technology is now a new strategic domain. It's no longer a technical domain. It's now in the strategic domain. Okay, and the fundamental shift in European security architecture, integration and dialogue to deterrence and defense, dawn of a new Cold War era security paradigm. There's a new Cold War era. You see how the Europe is actually in problem. You are aware of the issues of Muslim dominance in UK. You are aware about in France. You are aware of the immigration policy. You are aware of the economic conditions of the Europe. I met a couple. I was on a visit to Spain last year, and this couple had come from Britain. Couple के वो 4-5 बंदे भी थे. So I said, they told me that they come and settle down in Spain. I said, why? They said, no, we can't live in UK. I said, what? You can't live in UK? A country which was a superpower just about 7-8 decades back and ruled the world. You can't live in UK? There's no. So such is, the world is changing so fast. Matlab, when we got independence, let's take, even if you take, Britishers left us when? 47, 75 years. और उससे पहले 5-6 साल, मतलब 70-80 साल के अंदर यूके का स्टेट ऐसा हो गया कि यूके सिटीजन्स आर लिविंग द कंट्री एंड मूविंग. So it's a new paradigm that you're looking at it. Okay. The impact that will have is that very soon Indo-Pacific is going to be a center of gravity. When you talk of Indo-Pacific, the Indian Ocean, etc., the Middle East is undergoing tremendous amount of strategic realignments. Okay. East Europe, there is a recalibration of NATO. If you read out new strategic concept, Russia is an adversary. It was never thought of. Today, the whole NATO is thinking that Russia is my adversary. Even today's paper also gave out the fact that Russia is Russia's aim is to conquer whole of Europe. I think not yesterday. I think the German defense minister has said that we need to triple our defense budget, not even double our defense budget. Such statements in last couple of years only has never been heard for the last almost half a century, I can tell you. So what I am trying to tell you is that the change is coming too fast than we realize. And we got to live to this situation. There is a new venture in Arctic and the space domains. If you read Times of India today's article, there's an article by former Naval Chief Admiral Arun Prakash. He writes that we need to have a stake also in the Arctic. And he gives out a very wonderful article. You must read this article today. We need to have a space in Arctic. We need to. Why is Trump shouting, I want Greenland? He's even gone to the extent that I want Canada. Just from, analyze things. These are very, very serious statements on which it is going to affect the national security. So, global governance के ऊपर काफी फर्क पड़ रहा है. You have so many groups which are coming up like Quad, BRICS, etc. And there is weaponization of the global commons. Common क्या है? Anything which is being utilized for common thing. Like space हो गया, ocean हो गया, cyberspace, Arctic. They are never weaponized. They are all being weaponized. Okay. And push for strategic autonomy by major middle powers. Strategic autonomy is a new foreign policy. We'll have a separate class on this issue. But then it's not only India. It is Turkey, it is Brazil, it is Indonesia, and so many other countries. They want to have a new strategic autonomy. They don't want to be aligned with the earlier groups per se. So when you talk of strategic autonomy, that means they want to have the new principles, new policy, new security doctrines, etc., which they want the world to know. Why is Turkey started helping Pakistan?
Because of the Pakistan was nuclear power to which are that Turkey which are the manufacturing nuclear power transfer technology.
वो थोड़ी करेगा वो तो हैं? Because of no. Yes, partly right. Because he has an ambition that he wants to be actually the leader, because if you recollect the Ottoman Empire, they also are not forgetting कि करीबन 100-150 साल पहले they were ruling half of Europe, or full of Europe, Ottoman Empire, for nearly 300 years. वो बोलते हैं कि हम वो है. So they want to take the lead. Realignment in the Middle East taking place because Saudi Arabia बोलता है कि I am the leader of the Muslim world. So these are new issues of strategic autonomy and assertiveness which are coming up in the world today. And the moment you start becoming different assertiveness, different issues, वहाँ पर you will start getting into conflict. And the moment you get into conflict, your security issues comes into play. And since it is a very interconnected world, India is just cannot say ki, chalo, let me close my eyes what is happening in the Middle East, let me close my eyes what is happening in Ukraine. You know, it cannot. Everything is intricately linked. यूक्रेन में लड़ाई हुआ वहाँ पर, और मिडिल ईस्ट में लड़ाई हुआ, हमारे we have a problem as far as oil is concerned. Now if we didn't have a good relationship with Russia, today we would have been paying so much of money as far as the oil imports are concerned. And this is despite the fact that there was a sanction against Russia and we did this. When you bought this S-400 from Russia, you know, you heard this name S-400, Air Defense Weapon Systems? Again, the Americans threatened us that we will sanction you. So this is a new India where it is trying to have global assertiveness. So in these dynamic issues, okay, India's options are that it has to assert a Indo-Pacific leadership. You might get a question of how exactly India is going to navigate in the new security architecture. Okay. How it will assert this Indo-Pacific Quad for regional security? IOR. What is IOR? Indian Ocean region. Okay. Engagement via Sagar Doctrine. You heard of the Sagar Doctrine? Okay. Defense cooperation in ASEAN, Australia, Japan, and New Zealand, Vietnam, etc. So you need to have a Indo-Pacific. You need to strengthen multilateral and global South leadership. Get BRICS, G20 and etc. that we have been discussing. Deepen strategic partnership with US, Russia, EU, especially France. Because UK, although we are striking a free trade agreement with UK recently, but then we need to concentrate on this and expand strategic foothold in extended neighborhood. What is extended neighborhood? Something beyond the neighbor. Like, say for us, Iran and Afghanistan are extended neighborhood. Is taraf, Vietnam, Philippines, all the South Asian countries are extended neighborhood. They are beyond the neighbor. So when you go and put a footprint beyond the neighborhood, then what will happen? The neighbors will start getting controlled and tamed. Okay. Then navigate emerging strategic domains and US-China rivalry with tact, mutual benefit, and national interest. Most important. हम अगर प्रॉब्लम है कि भैया हम उसके साथ we are friends to US, we have a big trade with China, और दोनों के बीच में लड़ाई हो रहा है. How do we navigate this? It's a huge challenge that is there. Okay, so conclusion, the strategic landscape is fluid, contested and multi-domain. India must act to shape and not just to respond global trends. It must shape now. We forget about the response. I started with the national security strategy. Okay, how it should respond, how it should shape it. Now it's time to shape. You understand? You don't have to only respond. हमको shape करना पड़ेगा. You have to shape. Policy must integrate security, economy, and innovation. We can't be sitting out here. We talked about national security, we talked about economy. Now all this thing has to get integrated. Okay. India must act as a balancer and bridge builder in the present geostrategic environment. This could be one of our major national security strategies. India must act as a balancer and a bridge builder in the present geostrategic environment. Big task, let me tell you this. I've finished. Any questions? Was it too much of a But was it too much of a bombardment? Sure. As long as you want to understand, just to sum it up, how we started from issues of territorial to development to military, the multidimensional postal security, then you got into strategies, then you got into objectives, then you got to various elements. Okay, as things are concerned. Then I given you a landscape to what the geostrategic environment is all about. Okay, and wherein how India should now operate in this, geostrategic terrain. So each and every point, if you have noted down out here, okay, is telling you they're excellent for you to expand, and it will help you not only in your it will help you in multi papers, international security ho gaya, political ho gaya, okay, so many things it will help you. And if you are mastering this, let me tell you, I can tell you, having done so much of interviews at the UPSC level, 40 to 50% of the questions तो यहाँ से आएगा, from this today's topic only. I shouldn't be sharing, but I can just tell you this, because it's been so structured. So all those guys were not here, they've lost out the things. Okay, but besides the point, I hope they listen. But the issue is this, that this is the sum total of a large amount of questions which will come in different forms, whether in written test or in your. Because why? Because the fundamental duty as a government officer of maintaining security lies with you. We are training as future government officers. If we have been training as corporate leaders, obviously I wouldn't have been taking this class. That will be a different type of class. But then, why it's important for young generation, young leaders, aspiring future officers to know about this leadership issue or the strategic issue is that you must have the larger picture. See, once you have heard this, got the larger picture, aren't you all thinking a little differently? Are you not viewing security in a different format? Yes or no? Similar thing what I told you, that why education is an important part of security, national security. जब तक आप पढ़ोगे नहीं, जब तक अवेयर नहीं होगे, तो आपको पता नहीं लगा भाई क्या होता है. Anyone can brainwash. You will take wrong decisions. You will take decision based upon what you have heard over a period of time. So after this, whatever point hits out you, you must read more. Go to the YouTube or go to this thing. Don't finish it up out here. Make one notebook on national security. Make one total separate on national security. In fact, it will include international relations, it will include political science in different. When you talk of IR and other issues, they are raw form. They're raw. Whereas raw, the theoretical fundamental aspects. Your national security is basically nothing but your practical applications. So make it this thing, and anytime there is a classes which are there, keep building up on that. Okay, we try to have a national security series so that you are able to, having learned this now, you may be handling Middle East, you may be handling some of the Indo-Pacific and so on, so that you get to know more about it. I'm sure you must be having with an IR relations class, but then you may not get an advantage of speaking from a practitioner, listening to the person who has seen everything on the ground. Okay, there must be other teachers must be there who are basically theorists, but having served on the ground everywhere, I think you must get a better picture. But idea is that if you have any questions, you can always put it down later also, if you want any questions to be answered. हाँ जी, भैभव, ज़्यादा डोज तो नहीं हो गया पक्का? हाँ बेटे, अब you could. This is the first time, in the first month you said ना? So don't get too much this thing कि यार इतना पढ़ाई करना पड़ेगा, कुछ नहीं होता है. Once you get into the simplistic form of any subject, it becomes very clear. These subjects, minimum, what I've concised and told you, would take minimum about 15 to 20 classes to come to this particular thing. But I've given you the concise. From here you must now start developing. Okay.
Sir, you just mentioned that during Kashmir crisis you were there. Sir, can you throw some insight at what was the major problem or what was the major cause of Kashmiri persecution, and what was the main reason and whose failure was it?
Whose?
Failure was it that we cannot save those Kashmiri Pandit?
Achha, you are talking of the Kashmiri Pandits per se. You see, Kashmir has been a claim as far as the Pakistan is concerned since 1947, right? And we have denied it over a period of time, and it remained a disputed area for quite some time. And it remained in disputed state since 47 till 71. In fact, if you recollect, if you see the history of Pak interference in Kashmir, as far as in till 71, it was minimal. They used to keep claiming, okay, some people are there, but then we used to have good relationship, etc., no problem. But then 71 gave them a big shock when the country got divided, right? And there arose something in the 80s, mid 70s, fundamentalism in Pakistan. And Pakistan started now having a new doctrine, a new policy, wherein they said that we'll have to grab Kashmir at any cost, right? So then they have tried this in Ob Gibraltar in 65, in partly in 71. But now as a state policy, they said that we're going to take Kashmir at any cost to avenge the loss of East Pakistan. So they came different. They knew conventionally it was very difficult for them to attack India and take over Kashmir. So they started this new form of warfare called terrorism, right? So one of the early part of terrorism is that they wanted that they need to do ethnic cleansing. So create so much of terror in the system that the Hindus, other people move away from there, and there is total control they can have over the Muslims. Now this application of thing started sometime in early 90s when this thing. 87, 88, 88 was basically the first shot which was fired, and the process of ethnic cleansing started in 90s. Practically speaking, there is a big failure on our intelligence part to understand the Pakistan way of handling this thing. Although if you read this book, Frozen Turbulence, by Jagmohan, you know Jagmohan, he was the governor of J&K, C. Jagmohan, he used to, an IAS officer again, okay. He cites various instances of how he has been actually sounding the government that we need to address Kashmir issue in a different manner, and all these inputs that Kashmir is going to boil up was actually signaled to the central government way back in 86, 87 onwards. But for reasons best known, because it was Congress and Congress government that time, okay, people just kept a very, very blind eye to everything. And when it erupted, still people thought that Pakistan kya kar lega yaar, zyada kuch kar lega, we will be able to handle so and so. The military was never deployed to handle all this. By the time when the ethnic cleansing started, at that point of time, there was no internal deployment of any military or any paramilitary forces like what we have seen today in the beginning of 90s. Most of the army was deployed in the line of control outside. The inside was totally given to the police, because neither the central government nor the state government felt that the situation was so bad that we could start deploying the army in that, armed forces in that. It is in this background of a lack of intelligence, lack of appreciation, and lack of understanding of the internal security situation, wherein we didn't have the adequate amount of force to handle this particular situation, where the police was everywhere told, and this ethnic cleansing took place. And it happened actually too fast. It is just a matter of about 3-4 months. By the time the government of India reacted and started taking taking the situation into control, it was a little too late. So it was done a very, very mastermind technique as far as the Pakistan army is concerned. Post that, obviously, the army entered into the scene. Okay, the army was deployed. Then we flew in a division strength. Those the army was also not very much enhanced. We didn't have the reserve force, so one division from northeast was flown and told to take charge. And then in mid-90s, 92, the situation came under control. But it was in that time gap when the police was still under control, there was intelligence failure, there's a government failure, okay, when this ethnic cleansing took place, which was sad. These are the security dimensions to it. Anything that takes place in the world, for that matter, you must understand that they are hugely detailed and deliberate operations which are planned by the other side. It doesn't happen that one fine and Pakistanis thinks that hum aisa kar lenge, wo nahi hai. For that they worked much in advance in secrecy and other things to evade our intelligence sources. A lot of money was pumped in, lot of overground workers are given money, okay, lot of lawyers are bought, lot of people are threatened, lot of people are kidnapped prior to that. There were very clear indicators. But it's still an enigma that the central government did not act to the manner, to the inputs being given by, say, Jagmohan, the governor then. You must read that book to understand why things went wrong in Kashmir. Both. Whenever it takes place in security apparatus, Okay. See, earlier, if you look at what you are looking at the today security apparatus and situation, was much different at that point of time. Much different at that point of time. Because it's only then the need came that, okay, now the army has to, because deploying army for internal duties was taken in those days something that it was a failure of the central government. That central government or the state government, it couldn't handle it. So the opposition used to go berserk, it says, you can't handle things. So this was something, which was always being debated. So it is in this light of political machinations and not understanding the Pakistani's dynamics of undertaking these operations per se, including the first fire shot which took place, let me tell you, many people in the police and the army those days thought Pakistan will not be able to handle anything. But they had such a big plan, despite having given out that we're going to teach India a lesson. So something now also we should learn now. You see, they have already, through Pahalgam, we have given them a befitting reply. Okay. Though they're saying that we won, they did even in post-71 operations also. ऐसा नहीं कि if you read the Dawn paper in 1971 post-16 December, right? We did analysis. For nearly about 15 days, there was no mention that the 93,000 soldiers have surrendered. Entire उस टाइप पे खाली तो newspaper ही था, और तो कुछ था नहीं. Entire newspaper Dawn, which is the main newspaper of Pakistan, for 15 days there was no mention that 93,000 people have surrendered. It's only when people wrote letters from India, जाके पाकिस्तान में पहुंचा, मतलब उनके लोग जो है चिट्ठी विट्ठी लिखे, हमने तो we are very liberal, we took care of the POWs very well. But अरे ये लोग surrender कर लिए. Entire Pakistan population was totally blank to the issue that 93,000 people have surrendered. Soldiers have surrendered, and East Pakistan was lost. No, there's total blank because of lack of communications.
The first 2 decades after independence, was India also apprehensive that if we give military dominance, we would go on the path of Pakistan? We needed political institutions to be established and take a hold over everything. So that's why also in Kashmir maybe.
No, Kashmir came later. You see, India was a different ball game as compared to Pakistan, because in our case, as I told you, we had very strong political leadership. Those leadership continued. I also told you about the civil servants. Okay, did I tell you this, how the civil servants saw the transition? No, I think it is, we had a very strong ICS cadre. Okay, something to the tune of 740 odd people, who actually were trained in British time and were available. they all transited. Out of that, some maybe 50, 60 went to Pakistan, but majority of them stayed here. So they saw the transition. So in our case, this necessity never came that we'd have to depend upon army to control the nation. But in their case, since there was a new nation coming, everything was fragile. So in the gap, what happened was there was no political leader worth the salt who actually, because this fellow died immediately. क्या नाम उसका? Jinnah. He died immediately. उसके बाद उनके जो prime minister थे, they were not very powerful enough. So there was a huge political vacuum. So political vacuum, instability, and so on. So that's the time the army has to move in the field, in the guise that we. And in any case, those days Pakistan army, a lot of people were trained from the British time, like Sandhurst and other people. They are also equally competent. ऐसा नहीं कि they are not competent. And most of the time, soldiers and officers, we had fought together. Indian army and Pakistani officers fought together in both the Second World War. So they had a lot of combat experience. ऐसा नहीं है. So at that time, army was the only institution in Pakistan who could actually take on the lead to handle that particular country. Otherwise, the country would have gone in a chaos. That was a legitimate reason why the Pakistan army intervened, and the local population wanted that the Pakistan army should come in because there was no political leader worth the salt, which was not the case in India. But the fear was always there that if we give too much, because we also had very strong military leaders like General Cariappa, Thimaya, and all these people who were known figures in the country. Okay, in fact, when many times Nehru, when his later period, when he started becoming ill and problem in early 60s, he was quite fearful that Thimaya might take over, because Thimaya was a very popular leader. General Thimaya was a very popular leader, apart from an army chief, was very popular. Everybody knew him. So, but we had no such intentions. As Indian army has a very strong ethos of not get into political issues. Similarly, the government is also fearful that post 71 operations, General Manekshaw would possibly launch a coup or something. But no, in fact, one day Mrs. Gandhi gave a call to General Manekshaw when there's a lot of rumors taking place. So he says, Sam, can you come and have a cup of tea with me? So yes, madam, you're the Prime Minister, I'll come. So Mrs. Gandhi plainly first asked direct question, Sam, I was told that you're trying to make a coup against me. He says, ma'am, I don't want to take dirty jobs. I've got a very good job to do. Okay. And Indian army doesn't get indulged into that. Okay. Because the world was talking that, it's time, I think, the army should take over and whatnot. So there's a lot of things. But we as a philosophy, as a principle, Indian army, we don't want to indulge into political arenas, because that's a field which is left to the well-elected establishments. Good or bad, there is no organization which is good, everybody is bad. So you have to allow organizations to flow up. That's what we've been following. And we have never intervened. Okay. So that's been a philosophy. But that's not the philosophy in Pakistan. And not that they wanted to have a military, but it was a requirement of that particular time in the mid-50s, when they went into a vacuum of leadership. Because they had British leadership in Pakistan Army till 1955. Our Air Force chief was a British guy till 1953. You see the transition, because we were not stabilized that time. So once they left, there was a vacuum, which was easy for the Pakistan Army to move in. So this is the reason their way of thinking and our way of thinking got changed totally. Have you got an idea? Okay. Any other question? So I'm happy that at least I didn't find any of you sleeping. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay.